You're listening to the Cynic Radio Podcast. Now, your hosts, Igri and Cynic.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the 10th episode of the Cynic Radio Podcast. I'm your co-host Cynic, and staring blankly at me through Skype as always, my good friend Igri. We are the only podcast still accepting double coupons. And as always, listener discretion is advised. Miss out on that latest viral video? Didn't see the most recent trailer for the next movie coming out? In the dark about what the biggest song in America is? We've got you covered. Every week we scour the internet and look for the latest and greatest. This is what's up.
What's up for me this week is the new trailer for Spider-Man Homecoming. Spider-Man Homecoming coming out July 7th, 2017, starring Tom Holland. Also has Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man back in it. This is the Spider-Man movie we've been waiting for and the one we deserve. This is Spider-Man as he is supposed to be, humorous and athletic and fun. This movie looks amazing, and he's going to have a hard time against the Vulture, played by Michael Keaton. This is nothing but a good time. Go check out the trailer on IMDb or YouTube. It is wonderful. Spider-Man Homecoming in theaters July 7th, 2017. That's what's up.
Well, Ig, what's up for me this week goes out to none other than Chris Pratt. That's right, Star-Lord himself. He's currently promoting a movie called Passenger with his co-star Jennifer Lawrence. They seem to be having a good time at doing that. While most of the world is dying to get into pictures with Jennifer Lawrence, in a hilarious series of pranks, he's taking selfies with her and then cropping her out. They can be found on his Instagram account at Pratt, or just about anywhere else on the web. Check it out. It's a can't miss. Chris, you'll always be Andy Dwyer to me, but this week, you're what's up.
Just a reminder, we're still looking for the best awkward story. We're going to choose it over the next week. We got a few submissions. We'd like to see a few more. We're available on the Google Play Store. We're available on the iTunes Store. We're also out there on SoundCloud, Microsoft Windows app, the Android app, and you can check us out on our website at cynicradio.com. Hit that subscribe button, send that like button, send us a review, and send us your awkward stories at cynicradio@gmail.com. That's CINIK radio.com. Also looking for us on Facebook at facebook.com/cynicradio and on Twitter at cynicradio. We're looking forward to hearing from you. Send us your best awkward story. We're sending out a very special Walking Dead figurine. We can't wait to read your stories.
Well, we're here, mid-season finale time. Today we're going to talk about Episode 8, The Walking Dead, Heart Still Beating. We opened this episode with Maggie sitting at Glenn's grave, I guess Abraham's too, he seems to be an afterthought in all of this, with her knees bent all the way up to her chest. If you think about Maggie and what she's lost over the course of the run of the show, she's kind of an epic tragic figure in a sea of tragedy.
I don't know how she's still walking around and ever puts a smile on her face, but she's strong. She's a very strong character. She's a very, very strong woman in the show. I really enjoy that part about her.
Yeah, not to go with an analogy a minute into the episode, but definitely a pillar of strength for sure. Did you notice at all that the hat looked eerily similar to Glenn's?
It really did. Maybe she's thinking she needs to assume the mantle of Glenn and Maggie for the child coming, so she's trying to be strong for that reason. Maybe she's just holding on to one last thing. Maybe it'll be like Carl's hat or something, it's like he kind of wants to be like his father a little bit, got to wear the hat. I don't know, but I liked it. It worked.
Yeah, it was a shout out to the Glenn character, I think, and it's not the last one in the episode. There's a couple other hidden things in there. So she still doesn't look the least bit pregnant, and I realize that not much time's elapsed, but they're going to have to start doing something there to make me buy that a little bit. She can't be Last Action Hero and with a six-pack and still be pregnant. I know that it's possible, it's just doesn't look realistic. So she climbs the wall. You brought up a great point on Twitter about how should she be climbing up and down these walls while pregnant like that? You could fall, probably not the best for the baby.
Well, and they're saying that she's got this other condition and everything. I mean, if you've got this, separation of the placenta from everything, I mean, is that really what... Shouldn't you just kind of be laying down and resting as much as you can to try and keep anything else from happening? No, let's climb up a 40-foot ladder 6 or 7 times a day. That sounds like the greatest idea.
I think she suffers from a condition called detached giving a shit.
That could be very well true.
We started live tweeting towards the end of the season, and we're going to keep that up when they come back in, 2 months now? So I'm excited for that. I thought Facebook was a great community for The Walking Dead. Twitter is amazing. You've got some really devoted, fun fans on there. They're really creative with their artwork and their ideas. And the direct access to some of the stars has been great. I mean, over the last few weeks, we've added, I'd say, 5 or 6 Walking Dead alum to our friends list, and I've had contact with a few of them, and there could be possible interviews coming in the future.
Yeah, we're hoping. Twitter's a lot of fun. You should watch our live tweeting sessions. It's a good time. I think it's coming back the week after the Super Bowl. So what's that, like February 12th? Something like that. And it'll be a good time. And, you know, we're going to go through this episode, and you're going to see that it's worth coming back. It looks so good. There's so much coming.
So the douchebag of the half-season approaches. Good old Gregory wanders up holding an apple. It looks like not only has he learned Maggie's name, but Sasha too. It only took one sock to the jaw to get him in line, I guess.
He's the greatest guy out there, and he's doing them such a favor by letting them stay there like he has any say in the matter.
Yeah, I always love that person that pretends that they have a say in the matter when it comes to things that they obviously do not. He said, Maggie, I know people are saying things, nice things, about you and Sasha. It not being the first time that somebody said something good about Maggie Rhee, she said, are they?
Really?
Yeah, you can tell that she hasn't been listening for it. She just knows that it's probably going on. They are. How you saved this place? Don't let it go to your head. Maggie looks down with a smile and says, don't let it bother you. It seems like it's bothering you. What another drop the mic moment for Maggie Rhee.
Oh, yeah. That was... She just owned him in that moment, and she continues to own him. It's like, why does he even bother talking to her anymore? He can't get a leg up on Maggie. It's just not happening.
In a season full of people alphaing each other, from Negan to the Saviors doing it to the Kingdom, in the most alpha move ever, Maggie gets Gregory's apple through not only force of will, but sheer guilt. He tosses it up to her, and she happily eats it. I absolutely loved that moment.
It was such a great moment. And, you know, because she's like, you gonna eat that apple? And then somebody's like, you know, she's pregnant, right?
I don't recall the actor's name, but he's on Twitter too. He's a good feed. He interacts real well with the fans. One of his only tweets that night were just the 3 lines that he got in the whole episode, but he seems like a pretty well-rounded dude. Based off of that interaction and what she just did as far as the apple, do you think that Gregory's time at the head of the Hilltop table, does he have much longer?
Well, I think they might let him just sit there to appease him so he doesn't take the people that might follow him and cause some kind of strife in their community, but it's more like a puppet than it is an actual leader. And I think that goes hand in hand with some things that happen later in the episode. I don't want to put the cart before the horse and get on that, so we'll wait till we get there.
Yeah, we're apparently shooting a reality show called Life Lessons with Negan as he makes Carl sit through him shaving. Against the grain, kid. Always against the grain. If there isn't a statement there that personifies Negan and Carl, I don't know what is.
Well, Negan's kind of an against the grain kind of guy because he's going to rub you. He's going to, one way or another, and it's going to leave you a little bit raw when you're done.
Well, Carl, too. I mean, the kid's on marching to the beat of his own drummer. He just does what he wants. You know, even with a strong parental figure like Rick, Carl is just always up to look what he did last week. He jumped in the truck and I'm going to go kill me some saviors.
And fooled Jesus along the way.
It wouldn't seem like you would get much over on Jesus, and Carl definitely got him. You could even see it by Jesus just kind of rolling his eyes while he's sitting there watching the truck drive away, and Carl threw out the peace sign. It's like, show me first.
Well, as they said in The Big Lebowski, you don't mess with the Jesus.
So Jeffrey D. Morgan apparently is able to contractually shave now, so that gives that more iconic Negan look, shaving off some of that man bush. One of the weird things I noticed in this episode, but I saw it before, but even as he's shaving, he sits the razor down in front of Carl. He has a habit of doing that to Rick and Carl, where it's either a blunt instrument like Lucille or a sharp instrument. Do you think that is overconfidence, or do you think that is a challenge? You know, is he paying them, Rick and Carl, so little mind that he's like, here, deadly weapon, I'll just sit this down on the counter? Or do you think that's like he did with the hatchet in the RV, like, your best bet, Rick, is to come bury that hatchet in the back of my head.
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's like, do you dare pick this up and challenge me? And a little bit of, I know they don't have the balls to pick this up and challenge me. And, I mean, because that wasn't like your standard, big Mach 3 razor or something. That was a big straight edge. He continually hands Lucille off to people. He handed it to Carl in the last episode. He had Rick carry it around, walking behind him like a puppy a couple episodes ago. He just gives people stuff. I mean, and bring me my axe. Do this. I mean, he lets people hang around him and just dares them to do something with it, and they won't. But that may end up being his downfall.
Yeah, trusting the wrong people or challenging the wrong people will definitely be his Achilles heel.
You're only going to back that dog into a corner for so long.
Looking at you, Daryl. So we head back over to Easy Street Daryl, and he's looking at the note. He's looking at the matches and the key. At this point, if you're Daryl, do you go for it? I think you almost have to, right? This may be your only out.
I mean, he watched Negan drive off, so he knows Negan himself isn't there. He's going to have a better chance of making something happen with a bunch of the people that are supposed to be there not there. That's going to give him his best chance, so he's got to take it.
In an effort to get everybody in the episode, we have a lot of cutscenes here. So we go back to the Bobby Filet of the Apocalypse, Negan, and he's tasting the sauce. Every time he's on the screen, he never fails to crack me up. He tastes the sauce and he says, do you want some of this? Holding the spoon out to Carl. And Carl's really of the week goes out to Negan, thinking that he's going to taste anything after him.
Right? It's like, I don't want to swap spit with you, buddy.
Olivia's outside thinking about her life choices, and when they, in an attempt to shoehorn Tara into the episode and give her a little bit of dialogue, she comes up and they have a debate over the lemonade and who should go back in there and give it to them. What ends up happening to Olivia in the episode? Do you think that would have happened if she would have took the out and Tara would have been standing next to Carl?
No, I don't think anything would have changed. With everything that's happened with Olivia, between Olivia and the Saviors thus far, I think Olivia would have still been the choice. I think the Saviors that were involved later in the episode were aware of where she is, because you got time to gossip. There's no TV. There's no real things to do, so what you do is you gossip. So everyone knew who this lady was. Everyone knew what she did. Everyone knew that she was incompetent to a point. I don't think she was really incompetent. It was more of a Spencer problem, but I think that they would have been looking for her anyway. I think that when given the chance, one of them popping around in her just kind of made them feel good.
Yeah, we'll kill somebody for effect, but not somebody too important to the organization that we're going to stop operations around Alexandria.
Well, that would be bad for the whole operation because, if you're killing somebody that's that important to the operation, then who's going to go harvest?
So based on Tara and Olivia's conversation, would you say, is it safe to say that maybe Negan's overstayed his welcome in Alexandria this time around?
I think, more than Negan showing up at the gate, going hi, turning around and leaving is overstaying his welcome, but they can't exactly tell him to go somewhere else either.
Yeah, go pound salt guy with bat and army with many guns. You have to watch Negan closely in every scene. Carl and Olivia are kind of getting ready for dinner, and he's sitting there like the figurehead. He wants Carl to set an extra spot for his dad when his dad comes home. I kind of wish that this would have played out where Rick came in while they were all eating dinner together. But in his attempt to educate Carl in the ways of the world, Carl sits down the placement setting wrong, and Negan picks it up and reverses it, and Carl gives him, once again, the stink eye from hell. Negan gets the biggest F you grin and holds it while he's finishing setting the table. It just cracked me up to no end.
It's hilarious. I mean, just everything that Jeffrey Dean Morgan is doing as Negan is so right. Again, love-hate relationship because, he's hurting people that we've all grown to care for and grown emotional attachments to in this series. But he is so good. And just even the smallest nuances work so well. Because that grin out of him was great.
Once again, we cut and we head over to Rick and Aaron, who are sizing up the Acme brand boat that's sitting there full of bullet holes in a screen door. I don't know if I trust the integrity of that thing, even if you had to go a short distance.
Yeah, well, screen door on a submarine doesn't tend to work all that well.
They look at the Lake O walkers. Rick gives Aaron a definitive out. Aaron refuses and he goes and gets some makeshift paddles. I kind of liked the way things took place here because he went and kicked the sign over and broke, ideally enough, two perfectly shaped paddles off, and they get in the boat and off they go. By giving Aaron the out before they go on this, do you think that Rick still doesn't see Aaron as part of his core group? He would have never told Michonne, hey, listen, you don't have to go.
Yeah, I think, he's not sure that Aaron has what it needs to be to do everything that needs to be done. He doesn't have the strength of character, or that he knows that he has a strength of character. So I think he proves himself a little bit later, but thus far there hasn't been that moment for Rick that gives him the trust in Aaron.
So they get in the boat, they begin to paddle off, and then we cut back over to the world's worst dinner party since the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Negan is tired of waiting on Rick, and he gives his spot to Lucille, because Lucille is hungry.
I guess Lucille likes pasta now.
Well, it was with marinara sauce, so I guess it kind of works.
Yeah, the vampire bat is, as long as it's red, she'll eat.
In one of the most honest moments in the whole show, she yells at Eugene, "Do you like watching Haircut?" He responds with, "Yes."
You gotta have a Eugene. I don't care what anybody says. I love Eugene. He's great. I mean, just that dopey look he gives, yes.
It's definitely straightforward. He's not playing around. He does like to watch. And that is a huge callback to the fact that Abraham and Rosita used to let him watch them get it on. There was especially that one hilarious and creepy scene in the library where Tara walks up on Eugene watching them through the book stacks.
Yeah, I mean, he likes to watch, and he's got the best haircut.
We cut over to recluse Carol. She's sitting by a fire reading because she doesn't want to deal with anything or anybody right now. I believe, I couldn't quite make out the book, but I believe the title of the book was How to Distance Your Friends and Infuriate People. She catches sight of Morgan leaving in a bag of food. She calls him back, not to talk to him or anything.
Just to admonish him for being there.
She tells him that she's okay, and she opens up a back room, more stock than Alexandria's pantry. King Ezekiel's been around several times to bring her food. She says that she believes some people are having a hard time when she says she wants to be left alone. Now, to me, maybe I'm looking at it with a critical eye. Maybe I love Terminus and the fight against the Wolves Carol a little too much. But are they not only just wasting this character, but wasting Melissa McBride as an actress?
I think so, but in my experience with the show, they don't mark time for no reason. I think they're trying to make her seem something that she's going to turn back into Vengeful Carol eventually. At least I hope so. I hope she just doesn't... They just kind of write her out as living in the cabin by herself. Because, if they're wasting our time making us see that and watch all these people come and try and interact with her, that's going to be really sad. So I hope that this is going to lead somewhere, because this small portion of Carol stuff lately is getting real old real fast. So I hope it leads into something.
It's kind of one of the few, and we know that at some point she comes out of her shell and she goes and she starts to fight, and that's bound to happen. I mean, unless they write her character off altogether. This soul-searching or looking for depth of character bothers me a little bit, because they've done this with so many characters before where, oh, I don't want to be a part of this conflict. I don't want this. I don't want that. Tyrese comes to mind when I think about it. Chad Coleman's a great actor, and they were looking to give him depth, but it almost came at the expense of anything interesting about the character. This real-time struggle of right or wrong or death or good. I wasn't a big fan of it with him, and I'm not a big fan of it now.
Well, and it didn't end well for Tyrese, and I would hate to see that happen to Carol. Carol's been with us since the beginning. She's grown so much as a character and as a person in this world. For her to go the way of Tyrese, I think, would be a sad waste, because she is such a good actress. I like Carol as a character in general. I just don't like this portion of this turn. So I'm hoping that this makes us feel something when she comes back out of so-and-so retirement. Just so far, I'm not a fan.
Yeah, it's kind of what they're doing with Rick, too. The lull before the high. You get to the bottom of the roller coaster only to go back up. So Morgan says to her, I was trying to leave you alone, but you called me over, and I think you're going soft. She dismisses him, and he goes to leave. The Kingdom's #1 guard, Richard's at the door. Oddly enough, with it looks like milk bottles, right? Like glass milk bottles.
Yeah, it did. It looked like, maybe he was a milkman in former life and just, going on his rounds and decided, hey, I'm going to drop some things off, impregnate you, and move on.
Oh, yeah, maybe he was definitely trying to deliver the milk. So he wants to sit down and have a talk with them both. You can tell just by the look on Carol's face that this talk probably isn't going to go the way Richard wants. We cut back to Rick and Aaron paddling in the boat, trying to get to the canoe, then trying to get to the other boat. I don't know whoever wrote the sequence, but I think they were high.
Yeah, it's like I'm going to go from a boat to a boat to a boat, and that's going to be really cool, dude. We'll have like boatception or something, man.
But wait, man, we're going to put holes in the first smaller boat, and then they're going to get to the canoe, which is slightly bigger. Maybe we'll put a walker in there, and then they'll get to the other boat where the supplies are. You get it?
Yeah.
I like the way the scene played out, even though I have no faith in the whole bullet hole in the boat idea. I don't know why they would do that, but all right, so we build a little suspense. I like the whole fight scene with the walkers. I like how, it kind of took place. When they get to the canoe, though, I have a big problem with the, number one, that all that noise, that walker's still just kind of hanging out in the sun, not showing itself. We've done this 1,000 times before, and Aaron's reaction as he screams and kind of falls backwards into the water like he's never seen a walker before. I understand that he got help from some of them in the water, but I wasn't buying all that. I would have preferred that one of them got a hold of his hand and just pulled him in rather than the, oh my God, hidden walker.
Yeah, that was a little stretched. And then, hidden walker, sunbathing. I don't buy that either. But, some of this has to be a suspension of disbelief for TV. It plays better on the screen, and we can't make sure that everything is accurate as to how everything else in the series has gone thus far. So what I was confused about was how Aaron got out of whatever trouble he was in.
Well, exactly. A very young Jason Voorhees pops out of the water and drags Aaron to the bottom of Crystal Lake. He's surrounded by, I would guess we would call them floaters at this point, because they're certainly not walking.
Or bobbers.
He comes up unharmed, and then they get over to the third boat. We cut back to Easy Street Daryl, who's sneaking around the corners. He hears voices and he ducks into a room. This seemed to be a little more random, because I had read somewhere on the internet that he was following some sort of trail. It didn't look like that in this scene, like he was just sulking from hallway to hallway. It was my opinion that I thought maybe Dwight started this whole scavenger hunt. I'm kind of almost leaning towards Jesus at this point.
Yeah, I'm torn, because I think it could go either way. I'm thinking still Dwight. I think Jesus could get in and out of there, but I think it'd be a lot harder. And I think Dwight is kind of at his tipping point where he's had enough. So I'm hoping it's Dwight, thinking it could be Jesus. But I didn't see a trail. I didn't see what he could be following. It just looked like he was blindly looking for a way out.
Yeah, but he just kind of once again, I guess we're back to the suspension of disbelief, but he happens to be in Dwight's room when he ducks into the room. He looks around, he sees the wood carvings and such. He changes his clothes, which is a good thing that he ended up in Dwight's room, because they seem to have a similar taste in clothes.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't have an extra vest in there for him to put on.
At least this escape attempt is lasting 500% longer than the last one, so good on Daryl. At the point that he got changed and he kind of snuck out of the Assassin's Creed out of the room, did you think that he was on the verge of getting away this time?
I don't know. I mean, I thought there's still enough saviors around there. You can hear him talking. You can hear him making noise. I thought that he might run into some trouble, and he might still get away, but he might have to do some so-called dirty work to get his way out.
One of the neat things that somebody picked up on the internet, the clothes he changed into, one of the things that were on the internet was that the clothes that he changed into were a definite shout-out to Glenn's character. When they encountered him in episode 2 of season 1, it was almost to the T. The flannel, even the hat was the same type, which oddly was the same type that Maggie was wearing back at Hilltop.
I thought that was kind of cool. You really had to be paying attention to catch that, and you have to have a pretty good memory too, because that's been a few years since it started. But it was really cool, and I think it's kind of fun having him put that stuff on, throwing a little bit of Glenn feeling in us. I think that works.
So, as swollen as his mouth was, I believe Negan compared it to a baboon's butt. Daryl, before he leaves, sits down and eats what looks to be a whole jar of peanut butter. How hungry do you have to be that you're that thirsty too that you're going to sit down and eat a whole jar of peanut butter?
Well, the truth is it's a good source for some energy, and I'm assuming that he hasn't been eating the way he should be, but to get a nice quick boost of energy and something in you that's going to stick around a little bit, peanut butter works good. When I was in the military, one thing I always carried around was extra packets of peanut butter that we would get from our field meals. And if I started to feel a little lethargic, I would just squeeze peanut butter out and just chew on peanut butter by itself. It does work. It's a very good food for something like that. But just watching him sit in that room digging his finger through the peanut butter was kind of funny to watch anyway. It was pretty hilarious.
Back on the Love Boat, Aaron finds a sign that says, "Congrats for winning, but you still lose." It's flipping the middle finger. Something tells me that sign may come into play a little bit later in the episode.
It can't do anything but hurt, especially if you keep it.
It looks like Daryl might be done with his Jiffy buffet. And with his long, tangly, dirty hair and his fresh new flannel shirt, he kind of looks like the drummer for Pearl Jam as the escape continues. Rick and Aaron load their booty up and try to reason out their agreement with the Saviors. It almost seems like they're on the same page. Aaron coyly sneaks the title of the show in there, talking about, well, Rick, as long as our hearts are still beating. Probably Aaron's best monologue in the show, and he concludes it with, "We take what they give us so we can live."
Yeah, well, he's got some strength to him, and I think he's starting to prove his worth to Rick, and that's good for him. I like the character. I hope they flesh him out more. I hope he gets more time in the show, because it's a good character. It just needs to be brought a little more to life.
We scan across the lake as Rick and Aaron are loading the rest of their stuff up and closing it up and leaving, and there's an ominous pair of boots watching in the distance. Now, I hate to burst the bubble of the people on the internet. This is not the start of the Whispers. We're not even close to near being done with Negan yet. They're not going to move on and introduce the next huge thing in the storyline before they've even fleshed out the Negan storyline a little bit. Everybody's in such a rush to get to the next thing, and then when they get to the next thing, they're unhappy with what that is. Either you like the show or you don't like the show. If you don't like the show, turn off the TV, go outside and do something else. There's a million other, much like there's a million podcasts out there, there's a million other options of things that you could be doing.
I'm really enjoying this time with Negan. He's such a fleshed out character, and all they're doing is revealing more and more and more, peeling back layers of the onion, having a great time. I don't want to rush through this. I want it to be here and savor it. I like Negan so much more than the Governor, and they spent quite a bit of time with the Governor. I hope we get at least that amount of time with Negan doing things.
Did we get most of 2 seasons with the Governor, or was it more like a season and a half?
I think it was most of 2 seasons.
Great. David Morse, great actor. Jeffrey Dean Morgan, great actor. One thing you can say, whether you agree with the way they're being written or not, they cast well for their villains.
They certainly do. And I'm not saying that I didn't like the Governor. I'm just saying that the nuances and what's going on with Negan are so much more powerful that I just like it more. The Governor was a good character. It got him to places that this show needed to go. But to take that next step, to move into the next realm of what's going on, a character like Negan is needed. And the thing is there's humor and brutality and crazy decisions and everything going on because of this character. And that's why I like it so much, because this is the anarchy. This is the things that are going to happen. And he's got order, but it's very volatile order. It can't last that way. I mean, you can lead through fear for only so long. And things are going to break down, but, how are they going to break down? This is where the fun is.
We cut to the most uncomfortable truck ride. Michonne, the truck driver, she begins asking her questions like, "So, how long you been with Negan?" Pointing the gun at her head. Truck driver's still not shook. "What are you doing out here alone?" Truck driver's still not shook. However, it looks like Michonne is very much shook.
Yeah, she does not look comfortable.
Yeah, she says, "I'm not going to kill him today." More talking to herself maybe than the truck driver. "I'm going to find a way to win. I'm going to change how this ends for me." For the first time ever, did Michonne look nervous to you?
She did. She looked very nervous because she has a plan, but I don't think she even knows what the plan is or where the end of the plan is. She wants to do something, but she's not exactly sure to do what yet.
Filler scene alert as Enid, Sasha, and Maggie sit down for, it looks to be a meal. There's some foreshadowing going on about Maggie possibly running the hilltop. And Sasha plotting to go after Negan without Maggie knowing. Enid calls Sasha out on it after Maggie leaves, and Sasha tells Enid to keep it between them. Meanwhile, back at Carol's Fortress of Solitude, Richard wants to talk about fighting the Saviors. He wants Carol and Morgan to convince King Ezekiel that he should take up the mantle and fight. Neither of them are having it. You could tell that this conversation was doomed from the beginning.
Well, Carol's still doing her sad sack and hide out in her little house and read 1,000 ways to hide inside a bunker. It's going to happen, but it was just the wrong time. And she was already agitated, so Richard showing up, it just did not help matters for him at all.
I'd be interested to see if we're headed towards everybody coming together, obviously. So I'm going to be interested to see both her and Morgan's, how their mindset changes on this when they find out about Glenn and Abraham. Does it further push them away from because they both kind of have that same mindset. Carol wants to be left alone entirely, but Morgan doesn't want to be responsible for anybody else's death. So, but when they're told about the lineup and they're told about Lucille meeting them both, then do you think that kind of changes the way they look at things?
Well, I think there's still some feelings between Carol and Morgan and the core group. So, yeah, I think it changes things in a big way. Morgan might come to the realization that deaths are going to occur and that they're not all going to be his fault, whether he could have prevented them or not, and that sometimes he may need to kill. I think Carol's going to be like, this is not who I am. I need to be taking care of those that I care about and standing up for those that can't stand up for themselves. I think when they find out, this is going to that might be the thing that takes Carol out of this and brings Morgan back into full swing.
We cut over to Father Gabriel and Rosita having a discussion in the church about the fantastic bullet. You can see that Rosita is definitely showing some resolve that she'll die if she has to kind of take care of Negan. I see this as a huge mistake in the coming, but we'll kind of get to that as we go along. Great scene between the two of them, a lot of good dialogue of Father Gabriel basically convinces her that we'll do this together, we'll do it when the time is right, and we're going to need you to do it. So she kind of agrees to put the whole plan on hold for now, and they part company.
Yeah, I'm liking Father Gabriel more and more lately. He's come out of his shell a little bit, and he's spreading the word of God, but infusing it with some of the reality of what's going on. And I really enjoy it. I think that last season he was fairly weak most of the time. The season before was even worse. This season, I'm enjoying where he's going.
Yeah, the character progression there, they're doing a great job with him. They're writing him well. The scenes are both, they're funny, but they're poignant. The looks he gives people, like kind of the bemused or disappointed parent, just kind of staring at you with that half grin on their face, like, oh, all right, here we go now.
Yeah, it's written well. It's acted very well. The actor's doing a great job. I like where it's going, and I think that it's grounding some of the characters in a way that they should be grounded. So I enjoy it.
Spencer returns home to his ransacked house. For some reason, he decides to clean it and himself up, and it's time to go hobnob with Negan. This can only go well for him from there.
Oh, of course. He's got his best polo shirt on. He looks like the douchebag downtown, and he's ready to go do things and hobnob and assert himself, because, he comes from the rich family of town, so he's got to make sure everybody knows.
Like every good tough guy, Richard has a hidden RV in the woods so he could sneak in there and get a good cry in. He breaks some milk bottles, which I'm pretty sure they're not making those anymore, and sits down and has a good cry.
Well, you got to have a good cry now and again. I mean, all he was missing was his copy of Eat, Pray, Love, and he'd be ready to go.
We cut over to Spencer and Rosita having a talk and what his intentions are with Negan. Spencer basically spells out that he has a long-term game, that he's just going over there to make contact. He's going to, work it for a few years, and then when we get close enough, maybe we can get him. You could still tell he's very, as coarse as Rosita's been to him, you could still tell that he either can't take no for an answer, or he's still very much into her. He asks her outright, like, why did you start this with me? Why did we do this at all? She basically spells out, I just wanted to forget things, and I did kind of use you.
Yeah, well, you're going to get used some once in a while, and I guess he came up with the right reaction. Basically, you can use me anytime you want.
There's no shame in his game, because after she explains that she used him, he still asks her for dinner. She kind of gives a sly grin as he walks away and agrees. So he's off on his mission to go make contact, to meet friends and influence people with Negan. We cut back to the sanctuary, where Easy Street Daryl's making a run for it, and he's found himself a pipe. He finds his bike, he begins to get ready to leave. Tragedy strikes for us as our new Twitter friend, Fat Joey, happens to wander by, just eating his sandwich. He sees Daryl. Daryl comes at him with the pipe. He tries to reason with him. Listen, you can walk right out the back gate. I won't say anything. I'm like you. I'm just like you. I'm trying to get by. That last statement infuriates Daryl, and it causes him to beat him above the head, neck, and chest area with a pipe. In the middle of it, he seems to find Jesus, or at least Jesus finds him.
Yeah, Jesus found him in the midst of a beating spree. I don't know if they took the motorcycle or not. They got out of town, but, Fat Joey, we hardly knew you. We're going to miss you a lot. You were a lot of fun on the show, and this is going to have bigger ramifications for the show than I think people realize.
Yeah, I just came across that myself, so they foreshadowed that a little bit in the last episode, that he's more of a centralized or key figure in the story than we knew. Being a explosives expert, with him no longer in the picture, they have no one to control the hordes that come by. Apparently, Fat Joey goes out and sets tripwires and leads the hordes further and further away with, I believe, some sort of plastic explosive, right?
Yeah, controlled explosives. You can, because the walkers tend to react to sound and heat and things like that, so they blow things up away from their compounds, and they continue blowing things because they're only going to go so far. So you blow one to get them going that direction, blow one a little further, so that you can control the direction they're going to, quote unquote, walk in. They led into some of the stuff, like from the last episode, the guy that took the iron, Mark was supposed to be out helping set up one of those explosives, and that's where the failure came, and that's why some of the walkers, some of the herd was near one of the trucks. Fat Joey was explaining in the last episode when Carl was going to come out that was the failure. That's how Negan found out. That's how he figured out what was going on. But Fat Joey not being there, I don't know that they're going to have anyone else with the technical know-how to be able to set those things up. So this is going to be a bigger bang to the Saviors than I think they know.
Possibly everybody. Once again, everything matters in the Walking Dead universe, so I have a feeling that this will lead to some sort of bigger storyline down the road for sure.
Well, and the proximity between Hilltop and Alexandria and the Savior's compound and everything has got to be pretty close, because they're all moving pretty quickly between the areas. So what I'm seeing is that part of what the Saviors are offering is you go and you gather all this stuff for us, and we will keep you safe by controlling the zombie hordes. If they can't control the zombie hordes with their explosions, then they're going to have to actually go out and try and call zombie hordes, and I don't think they've got the ability to do that very successfully either.
Yeah, Eugene's going to have to make a whole bunch of ammo if they're going to start cutting them down.
Yeah.
So we quick cut over to Spencer, and he's having no luck getting past another new Twitter buddy of ours, Arat. We cut back to Michonne in the truck with the truck driver. They pull up. It's kind of a hill situation where the sanctuary may be down towards the bottom, and you can just see it written they didn't show it from far away, but you could see it written all over Michonne's face that the sanctuary is massive, and there must be a ton of people milling about. They spin the truck back around. They have a talk. Basically, the truck driver is giving her an out, but she's also saying, I can't go back and not telling you. So there's a silencer in the glove compartment. As the truck pulls away, you see like a quick flash in the distance and possibly Michonne climbing over into the driver's seat. It was definitely a weird series of events there, right?
Yeah, it was. It was very strange to see things happen that way. And the pure gravity of the situation weighed in quite a bit. But, I mean, again, some people have to figure some of this stuff out. And our faithful friends back in their Fortress of Solitude need to understand what they're getting into. So seeing some of that stuff from Michonne, I think, is going to help in the long run.
Rick and Aaron arrive back at Alexander's safe zone. The saviors at the gate show Rick general disrespect, including our buddy Martinez slapping him. We cut over to Negan enjoying the good life with Spencer. They're drinking looks like a little bit of whiskey on the rocks on the porch. And Negan says, the only thing we're missing is a game of pool. So Spencer points out that there's a pool table across the street, and he sends people to bring it. Kind of I'm going to show you how much stroke I have. We're going to bring the pool game to us. We're not going to go to the pool game. Once again, Negan never fails to be the life of the party.
Yeah, Negan's always looking for that next good time, and he's going to have it with or without you. He doesn't need anybody else to have his good time. He'll have it all on his own.
The definition of being at the wrong place at the wrong time. Poor Aaron is standing there when they find the note about congratulations for winning, but you still lose in the figure.
Yeah, and then, the saviors respond with, what the hell is this, some kind of joke?
Yeah, he takes quite the beating there.
Yeah, he takes it kind of like a champ, though. I mean, I'm surprised he didn't fight back at all, but I think that they know that fighting back gets them killed. And I don't think the saviors would have any second thought about dropping a bullet in somebody that tried to start fighting back.
Yeah, in a town full of bad decisions, Aaron makes probably the wisest decision of the episode by not trying to fight back. The guys beating on him were pretty big, but I don't know if he would have done too well anyway. He's not Jesus with the parkour.
Parkour.
In an odd decision, the whole town decides to gather around and watch Spencer and Negan play pool. Negan lets Spencer know, I would never do this with Rick. He'd just be standing there, scowling at me, giving me that annoying side eye. Spencer tells him, it's funny you should bring that up. Spencer begins making a case to Negan about replacing Rick at Alexander as the leader. We cut back, they're still beating on poor Aaron. It got painful after a while. It seemed like that scene was kind of lasting forever.
Yeah, they beat on him for a long time.
Yeah, they might have went a little over the top, especially since medical care isn't what it is, and if you puncture a lung or break the rib in the right place, it could be curtains for poor Spencer.
Well, and they took all their medical supplies. I mean, that happened a couple episodes ago where they took all the medical supplies.
Negan gives what Spencer said a good long thought. Him not playing well with others, and Negan tries to tell him, well, he's not in charge. Well, yeah, but, you don't understand Rick Grimes. My mom was in charge, and he cost me everything. And Negan gives it a long thought, and he stares at Spencer intently. I think about Rick, and how he hates me, and how he's out there still looking for stuff so I don't hurt anybody here. He swallows that hate, and that takes guts. Then there's you, a guy who waited for Rick to be gone, to sneak over here and talk to me and try to get me to do your dirty work for him, so you could take Rick's place. So I gotta ask you, if you want to take over, why don't you just kill Rick and take over?
Yeah, that was a pretty good moment, and it was really foreshadowing the eventuality that was coming, because I think it looks like Negan is not willing to just let people walk around and try and be a sissy in this world. If you're going to just kind of cry about how things are going, he's going to let you know that this isn't the place for you anymore.
Negan guesses that Spencer has no guts. And with that, Spencer unknowingly lining up a shot, Negan takes out the world's biggest knife and slices them all up straight across the center like a peanut butter sandwich.
Yeah, he totally put Crocodile Dundee to shame, and right at that moment, looked like Spencer no longer had any real guts because they were all coming out of his midsection.
Great scene-by-scene reenactment from the comics, too, by the way. They have an act on this show of just capturing the moment with that, and they did it right. I mean, I would say probably 95% of Negan's dialogue comes directly from the comic. The setting was a little different. Him and Spencer were kind of wandering around Alexandria when this happened.
I think even the angle of the shot from the comic book to the show was eerily exact. It was so close.
Negan, scanning the crowd, says, "How embarrassing of me. You do have guts. They were inside you the whole time. I've never been so wrong in my whole life." At this moment, Rosita has had enough. She pulls the gun and fires it. They cut away, they cut back. She shot Lucille.
Yeah, Lucille taking one for the team. Lucille saves the day once again.
Rick hears the gunshot, and poor wounded Aaron gets drugged the length of Alexandria to go find out where the source of it was. One of the most unbelievable things in the episode happens is Negan just turns out to be a munitions expert, picks up the casing, and can tell that it was homemade. Boo.
Yeah, that was a little stretched. It's like, one bullet looks like the next. I mean, how are you going to be able to tell? Well, these crimps. Really, man? Come on.
Yeah, that was a little hard to swallow there. I'm not gonna give him any leeway on that one. Rosita gets taken down by a rot because she's a badass. She's holding a knife to Rosita's face, and Negan is ranting and raving.
Yeah, Negan's pissed at this point.
He does proclaim her a badass. She won't give up the source of the bullet. A couple people try to step forward, but Negan's not buying any of it, especially Tara. She was more than willing to take it for the team. So he, right away, Arat, kill someone. And just like that, poor Olivia takes one for the team.
Yeah, it's like there was no second thought, and this is what I was talking about earlier. I think they all just kind of knew where she was, knew if given the chance, she would be the one to take one. And there it was, because, it was instantaneous. He said, Arat, kill someone, and she just turned and blam, right into her. There was no thought, there was no process. It just went off. So that plan, I think, for the Saviors was already in effect.
Rick shows up and begins yelling. Of course, everybody in Alexandria who's standing around watching the silly pool game is standing there in horror. Rick shows up and starts yelling at Negan that we had an agreement. Rick, how about a thank you for showing you how reasonable I could be? He points at Carl. He says, your kid hid in one of my trucks and machine gun a bunch of my men, and I brought him home safe and sound. And I fed him spaghetti. I love that line. And Rick gives Carl just the death stare for not staying in the house.
I did like the line, and as I said on Twitter, now we need the remix from Eminem for Negan spaghetti. That was great. I brought him home, and I fed him. Look at everything I've done for you lately.
Another one of your people wanted to kill you and put himself in charge. I took him out for you. And another one, well, she shot Lucille, trying to kill me. So I did you a favor, and you have one less mouth to feed. By the looks of her, she was doing some major damage.
Yeah, there goes Negan fat shaming again, and I don't know what else to say. That's one of the harsher things that he does, but again, I think it's necessary to portray who Negan is. He is not apologetic for anything that he does, any way that he behaves, or anything that he says in front of a group. Like you said last week, when it's one-on-one, he might be apologetic and stuff to try and get his point across and things. But when it's in front of a group, he shows no weakness.
It's kind of like King Ezekiel. It's all about the theatrics. The theatrics are what's keeping him on top. It's the flair for leadership that Gregory definitely has none of, that those two guys seem to those guys seem to exude in volumes.
Right, but it's the differences between them, because Ezekiel does it through more kindness and productivity and unity as a group, whereas Negan does most of it through fear and theatrics and brutality. Both are effective, but which is going to be effective in the long-term game?
Rick wants the Saviors gone right away. Your stuff is at the gate, get out. But not so fast. Negan wants to know who made the bullet. And finally, after a few people coming forward and saying they did, Eugene cops to it. Eugene's going to take Daryl's place, and he gets to go with the Saviors. I really hope this doesn't work out badly for Eugene.
Me either. I like Eugene, and I think because he knows how to do that, they're not going to go and put him in the whoopee and make him walk around and put walkers on the gate. I think they're going to try and make him work and try and build bullets or something to make things work. He might, then once they get back and find out Fat Joey's dead, they might try and make him the replacement for Fat Joey. But I hope that, the gang sees the value in Eugene and does what they can to try and get him back.
The king of the parting shots, Negan says to Rick, Rick, I ain't even gonna lie to you. Your kitchen is a goddamn mess. We'll see you next time.
I went in there and I made spaghetti, and I'm not a clean cook, so I left things all over the place. Good luck. See you later.
I believe it, and they showed the screenshot of Rick, welled up with tears and anger and just being overwhelmed in the previews. And I believe it was at this moment Rick realizes that no matter how he placates these guys, no matter how much he produces, it's never going to be enough. And every time they show up, somebody's going to pay the price.
Yeah, somebody's going to pay some kind of price. Somebody's going to do something.
Spencer comes back to life from after dying from his wounds, and Rick kindly puts him down. Something tells me he's been waiting the better part of a season and a half to do that, right?
Yeah, it's one of those sweet sorrow things that come on. I don't think he wanted to do it because there were a lot of people in Alexandria there that cared about Spencer to some extent. So had he done something to him when he was living normally, that would have been bad. But to put down a walker, even if it's someone that you cared about, that's what you got to do. Everybody knows the realization. But there's got to be a little bit of relief in Rick that he doesn't have this backstabbing coward running around behind him trying to undermine what he's doing anymore.
Michonne finds Rick in the cell that Morgan built. It seems like he's almost in either a form of meditation or planning. She tells him about her outing. She tells him about the compound, how they're really outnumbered, and that they still need to fight. And finally, Rick breaks down and he agrees with her. There was a long embrace. We do a cutscene to Maggie back up on the wall, once again, back up on the wall at Hilltop.
She don't care. She's climbing that ladder. Whatever.
That's right. The one way to deal with grief, one of the ways of acceptance, is to climb up and down a ladder excessively.
Isn't that the 8th stage of grief or something?
Maggie looks back out on the wall. She smiles as her friends come to the gate. Hugs all around. Maggie and Rick embrace. And he looks at her and he says, Maggie, you were right. Right from the start. You told us to get ready to fight. And I couldn't listen. But I can now. Big moment. Finally, after, what are we, and 2 months into this now, people crying about Rick coming back. Rick Grimes is back and he's ready to go. I was hugely excited about this. Rick looks up and he sees Daryl. What did you think of the whole bro hug thing?
Well, I think it was a long time coming. I liked it. It was a bit cliche, but sometimes the cliches work. And it worked here. I mean, he had Daryl. Jesus was there. I mean, it really started to look like the gang's back together. The only ones missing are Carol and Morgan. Well, and Eugene, I guess, because they took him. But, Eugene wasn't a member of the fighting gang, really. He was more of kind of a help plan things. He's not much of a fighter. But, I don't know. I kind of got some chills down my spine when that was happening. Because I'm like, oh, the gang's back together. They're looking to make something happen.
Yeah, the hug got to me a little bit. I can't deny it, because you can tell that these two actors generally they care for each other, and I guess they said on Walking Dead that pretty much haven't been filming together all season. So if you're used to working with your friend every day and you don't see him for a long period of time, so I guess there was probably a little more real life, like everybody's back together after they're done hugging, which seemed forever. The only problem I had with that was the everybody looking at each other and nodding thing. Talk about cliche. That I had a problem with that. Daryl hands Rick back his gun, and to me that was awesome. I'm glad they did it like that. It the way Rick looked at it, he was amazed by it, and they all turn and they begin their march up towards the main building at Hilltop. And something tells me Gregory's in for it.
Yeah, I think it could be time for Gregory to be done. But back to Rick, him getting that python back, that says everything to me. That is such a wonderful thing. That is core to Rick. I mean, it's core to Rick in the comics. It's core to Rick in the show. He needs to have that python. He absolutely has to have it. It makes him who he is. I mean, it's like we know it's only a matter of time until Daryl gets his or a crossbow back. That's who Daryl is. But we all know Daryl can kind of survive with whatever he's got. Rick has to have the python. It doesn't have to be his main weapon, but he has to have it.
So they fade to black, and in true Marvel fashion, they come back a few seconds later. It looks like the shadowy figure outline of Alexandria. You could see Father Gabriel always standing watch up there, much like the kingdom's answer to Maggie. And there's somebody in the distance just kind of peering into the town. And end of episode.
Yeah, and it was actually after the credits, so it was really back to like Marvel Cinematic Universe, because it was after the credits. I mean, they showed scenes from the upcoming half, they showed all this other stuff, they had the credits roll, and then this came up. That was cool. I mean, that was straight shivers down the spine. I'm like, who is this? I'm excited. And even the scenes for the rest of the season, the next half, or at least the beginning of the next half, look like some stuff is going down. It's going to be a great callback. I hope the ratings pick back up, because the season is picking up, and I'm really, really loving it.
There was a lot of great things about this episode. The Spencer stuff, I even like the Rick and Aaron stuff, the stuff at the end. A little bit of filler with Carol. A little bit of the Michonne stuff probably didn't hit the mark the way it should. I would give this episode a solid 8, especially for the ending when everybody finally got back together and Rick got his gun back and they could have turned to walk up.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take the opposite side from you, where I'm going to go higher this time. I'm going to give it a 9. I really like this episode. I think it was a strong way to finish, a good cliffhanger to kind of get us ready, but not so much a cliffhanger that now we're peeved about waiting for the next thing. Now we're excited that the direction we're heading looks advantageous to our people, even though we know they're outnumbered. Their planning mode and everything else that they do is going to start coming back. So I'm going to give it a 9. I really liked it. I really enjoyed it.
If the previews for the next half of the season don't get you excited, then maybe it's time. Maybe the show's passed you by, or maybe you passed it by. I think maybe it's time to maybe change the channel and do something else. I know we both can't wait. You know, we talk all the time about where this is going, and we're excited to see what happens next. One thing I want to hit on before we kill the talk for this week is the whole parallel between what Daryl tried to do and what Rosita tried to do, and the backlash she's received because of it. I didn't agree with either tactic. I thought it was both a little short-sighted, but their heart was in the right place. However, we give Daryl a mile of leeway and say, oh, well, he was just doing this, and, you know, I would have done that too. But then we're turning around and we're calling Rosita stupid for, you know, watching yet again someone she cares about being ripped apart in front of her by this guy. And then she finally makes her stand. I don't like the hypocritical nature of some of the fans sometimes. I believe that what they did was both very stupid but very heroic at the same time. And I believe that she deserves all the credit and all the accolades of standing up and trying to do something, you know, when everybody else kind of stood around with their hands on their hips.
Well, and you can't win if you never take a chance. And she saw an opportunity, tried to take it. Luck was not on her side, because really a 3-inch wide bat happened to be in the absolute right place to save Negan. You know, she took her shot. It didn't go well. Somebody else died because of it, but it's no worse. And it's actually probably much worse when Daryl did it, because Glenn was so much more integral to the functioning of the group, to the functioning of Alexandria, to everything that's happened so far than Olivia is. And people are jumping on Rosita, but Daryl is cool, so Daryl gets to do this. And I don't know if it's a misogynistic thing where because Daryl's a guy, he gets a free pass, or because Daryl's sexy and the chicks dig him, he gets a free pass. But I'm with you, Cynic. This is not the way it should be going. And, you know, you got to risk it to get the biscuit, as they say. And she took a risk, and sometimes you're going to lose. Sometimes you're going to win. But if you never take the risk, you're always going to lose.
Well, you heard it. The Cynic Radio Podcast gives it a solid 8.5. Strong performances all around, and the stage is set for an amazing second half of the season. The Walking Dead might be on winter break, but the conversation continues here with us. We're doing a mid-season wrap-up show with some very special guests. Look for it around this Tuesday.
So now, ladies and gentlemen, Boys and girls, children of all ages, it's time for Really. I'd explain it. Just listen. You'll get it. For me this week, my Really goes out to former child star Susan Cindy Brady Olsen. Susan Olsen was fired from her radio host job after sending a guest a homophobic rant on Facebook. After appearing on her show, actor Leon Accord Whiting criticized the former Brady Bunch actress on Facebook, calling her a Trump fanatic who spewed idiotic lies. Olsen allegedly sent Accord Whiting a private message calling the actor a lying faggot and saying, "My dick is bigger than yours." Susan Olsen, who hasn't done anything other than this except for being Cindy Brady in the 70s, I can't believe this is how you're going to treat the one shot you get in the world to do something good. So, Susan Olsen, really?
My very annoyed really goes out this week to the San Diego Police Department. This past August, at 8:30 on a Saturday morning, they were dispatched to check on the welfare of a naked man wandering around a canyon. Making contact with the guy, and with police body cams rolling, they calmly talked him back up to the bank. Everything is great, right? Unfortunately not. This is where things tragically go wrong. After 2 orders to turn around, the unarmed, disoriented man refused. At this point, and with no warning, they sicked the canine on him. 4 officers and the canine wrestled him to the ground, and this is where things got out of hand. For an additional 40 seconds, the dog was allowed to shred at this guy's leg, leaving him permanently disabled and without use of it. It looked like a scene from Stephen King's Cujo. Now, growing up under the Giuliani administration, I have nothing but great admiration for the police and realize that they're under fire from all sides. However, I see the complete lack of disregard for the safety and well-being for the public they're being paid to not only serve, but protect. It disturbs me, and in my opinion, further widens the gap of trust between us and them. Can no longer be overlooked or swept under the rug any longer. Both police and citizens need to be held equally accountable for their respective behavior. So to you, the officers of the San Diego Police Department, and anybody responsible for this being allowed to happen, really.
And that's going to do it for another episode of the Cynic Radio Podcast. I'm Igrahi. That's Cynic. We had a great time talking to you this week. We can't wait till next week. We're going to have some good stuff coming up for you. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and send us your reviews on any platform you're on. We can't wait to hear from you. Send us your comments, questions, concerns, and any fruitcake you can fit in a 5x5 box to cynicradio.com. Email us at cynicradio@gmail.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/cynicradio. And find us on Twitter at cynicradio. Thanks a lot for listening, and until next time, don't get captured.
Follow the podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and at cynicradio.com. Available for download on iTunes.
Parkour!